This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. So I know that. Lemmy being the lead singer of Motorhead. And once again, I feel like sometimes I have to give the disclaimer that I'm not a violent person. And maybe it's just the way that I grew up with a bunch of nut jobs listening to heavy metal that I still have an affection for something like Lemmy and Ace of Spades. But you gotta love that lyric too, right? If you like to gamble, I'll tell you I'm your man. You win some, lose some, it's all the same to me. The pleasure is to play. It makes no difference what you say. I don't share your greed. The only card I need is the Ace of Spades. The Ace of Spades. And then there's another lyric goes on to, you know I'm born to lose and gambling's for fools, but that's the way I like it, baby. I don't want to live forever. Don't forget the Joker. You know, obviously the live forever part, where obviously we're not going to live forever. That's a whole different issue. But for me, the real aspect there, the line that's great, the pleasure is to play. It makes no difference what you say. You win some, lose some, it's all the same to me. You win some, you lose some, it's all the same to me. Yeah, God, that's so good, right? That's so good, right? And this crazy, 1970s heavy metal lyric. I mean, what was Motorhead and Lemmy? Was it punk? Was it speed metal? What was it? You know, he's one of the ugliest dudes you've ever seen in your life, too. Go take a look at him. But he's great. Tell you what, there's also a documentary on Motorhead that's worth watching. I know you're probably sitting there. If you've never heard, I know you've heard that song, but if you've never heard of Motorhead, it's worth watching the documentary. True that. Listen, at the very beginning here, I want to add something. I've not had a chance to see it. I'm sure I'm going to watch it. But I bought this, Damon Vickers recommended it, called Unmistaken Child, kind of going into the world of Tibet and Buddhism. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and convince if she hasn't seen it, I'm going to try and convince my yoga instructor to watch it first, because I need something to talk about at yoga, or at least before and after yoga, and then I'm going to watch it. But there's two things I want to lead with here at the beginning, and I've got a bunch of trading rules that I'm going to get into, some good, some bad, some just classic things that we've heard. But one of the first things I wanted to jump into was this 2 Zen Habits posts. And the first one is called Finding Peace with Uncertainty. And it goes on to say, fear of an uncertain future can stop us from doing great things, and it can keep us holding on to things that are hurting us. For example, you might be holding on to clutter for reasons of comfort and security, even if the clutter gives you anxiety and costs a lot of money. What's a great example of clutter? Fundamental analysis, news, information, nonstop. So, but think about it. Where does all of this uncertainty within us come from? You know, it might be a silly question, but it's a really important thing to think of. Think about this. The odds of getting into a car accident are not greater tomorrow than today. Really. The odds of anything bad happening are not greater next week than they were this week. The odds of something great happening are also just as great next month as they were this month. So why is this so scary? Why is not knowing so scary? If you roll a dice and don't know what it will be, why is that scary? No, it's not the not knowing. That's the problem. It's the possibility that what comes up, the dice will bring us pain, suffering, loss. And that's where we all get caught up, right? I used this a great example the other day, and I posted it on Vimeo and YouTube. And so, because I just did this seminar over the weekend and with a buddy of mine, and we sat down with 3 guys at this seminar, and my buddy had this example with dice. And so what he did was he just had one die, and he said, here's the game. The game's real simple. If you get a 2 or a 6, you win 3 pennies. Any other number, you lose a penny. That's the game. Real straightforward, easy to digest. So you start rolling, right? Well, of course, the 2 and the 6 are not going to come up, but a third of the time. That's how it works. But you're winning 3 pennies for each time you get the 2 or the 6. And you're losing a penny for the other 4 sides of the die. And if you sit there and you start rolling that 1 dice and you start playing that game, getting 3 pennies for every time you hit a 2 or a 6, you start to realize, oh, wow, even though I'm not winning much on the rolls, the wins are big. I get 3 pennies. And so you sit there and you play that game and you roll like even 20 die. You roll it 20 times. You're going to start to realize, oh, wow, the winners, because they're bigger, pay for those losers because they're smaller. That's trend following. That's any good thing in life, right? This is how they fund Hollywood films. This is how they fund venture capital firms up there on Sand Hill Road. Will fund, the next startup, the next fantastic startup. There's so many great startups these days, right? Stuff like Zynga, where you get to like plant a fake farm. That's a whole different discussion. But anyways, in general, the principle of venture capital is to fund 20 projects. 19 of them are going to blow out and are going to be terrible, and that's you're losing your 1 penny, and then the 20th is going to pay for them all, and you're going to win your 3 pennies. That's the deal. So how do you get good at uncertainty? How can you learn to deal with it? The one post at Zen Habits has some great pointers. Try something new. Something new, small and safe. New things, the big things can be scary. So maybe you don't come at trend following all at once. Maybe you just start by saying, I'm going to figure out a way to extricate myself from buy and hold. I'm going to figure out a way to extricate myself from watching Fox News and CNN. I'm going to figure out a way to cease listening to a conversation with a broker. I'm going to find a way to never listen to CNBC again. See, I'm not even telling you to become a trend following trader. I'm just saying, figure out something small that you can do that really has no bearing on your life, that you can just stop. You can stop listening to CNBC. Now, I'm trying to think the last time I tuned on. I don't watch, so I really don't know what's going on. Occasionally, I might flip channels once in a month, maybe, to just to get something to talk about. It might be insane, because if you want something insane to talk about, turn on CNBC and you have something insane to talk about. That's just the way the game works. Trying to think of some other ones here that he talks about. So, well, this is a really important one too. So we're talking about uncertainty, right? And Zen Habits, which is just a website about taking a Zen perspective on life. One of his points, he says too, when you mess up, don't see it as a painful failure. Hey, if you make a bad trade, it's not a painful failure, right? You actually expect to lose. Losing is part of the game. You're going to, remember the dice roll? 66 or so % of the time, you're going to lose. It's just the way it's going to happen. Over the weekend, when I was doing this seminar, I talked about Dun Capital in one of these great slides they have in their PowerPoint presentation. And it talks about how they target. They actually try to lose 20% in a given month, 1% of the time. And in some ridiculous number of like hundreds of months, whatever, they have hit the mark 4 times for like 1.2%. So their objective is to actually be at a place to where their system is running at a certain level that they know they can't withstand or stop losing potentially 20% in a month, but they target it. So they try to get the loss 1% of the time. Now, how different is that than the way you think? Right? Completely different. Who thinks like that? Bill Dunn thinks like that. Bill Dunn's got hundreds of millions of dollars. Smart thinking. Let me jump at, also, this is a great one too, from Zen Habits, talking about how to deal with uncertainty. See the wonder and opportunity in change. Change might mean leaving the comfort zone, losing something. But look what happens, the new doors that open. So if you let go of some of those things I was talking about, then you can be faced with the new door of like, wow, this trend following approach really makes sense. I like the idea of no longer listening to someone like Ben Bernanke, who tells me just yesterday that I'm basically in control of everything and tells the Congress to just go away and some private little operation is going to be in charge of the economy and just go away. The same guy that was basically saying in 05 and 06 that there was no problem with real estate. Now, I'm going to go off on a slight tangent for a second. Federal Reserve. Actually, I won't go on the tangent. Anyways, I think you probably know where I stand on that. It's kind of irrelevant, but the point is, that's what you're trying to do, is make it irrelevant. You really don't want to worry about it. You can't control it. Look, the system's broken. The machine is not working. There's a lot of manipulation and whatnot, but all you can do, the only thing you have to believe in, is the price. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, also another one, be aware of your worst case scenarios. So if you're afraid of an uncertain future, think through what the worst case scenario is. It's much easier. And then I know my worst case scenario. My worst case scenario is I get hit by a meteor. My worst case scenario is they bring dinosaurs back to life and a velociraptor eats me while I'm going to Starbucks. That's my worst case scenario. If that's your worst case scenario, you can live with it, right? My worst case scenario is walking down the street, having to wear some type of protectant undergarment because I'm afraid I might crap my pants because a velociraptor might eat me. And if that is your worst case scenario, then you're fine. Just some points. So another one that I wanted to talk about also from Zen Habits, which I think is very important. And it's kind of, we got to think about how I word this because it's difficult to kind of absorb with trend following, because trend following is about waiting. So this post was called How to Wait Less. It goes on to say, so much of our lives are spent waiting. We wait in lines. We wait for the perfect person. We wait for our dreams to come true. We wait. The good life is coming and we'll be there soon. What if we stopped waiting? Stopped trying to make dreams and goals come true? Stopped wishing and anticipating? What if that good life is already here and the only way to live it is to stop looking forward and notice that we already have? If you're waiting for good things to happen or actively trying to make something good come true, take a pause. Look where you are right now in life and physically in this moment. Where are you? Is it already great? If so, why are you looking towards the future? See, what's really fun about trend following as a concept is it doesn't really violate that. Of course, trend following is about waiting, but you can't put yourself in a position, because clearly with trend following, you can't predict the future. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know the timing. We all know, for example, that a zero interest rate policy set to infinity, that QE infinity, will eventually have a problem. There'll be a hiccup. We know this. But you'll drive yourself crazy trying to predict it. You'll drive yourself crazy or waiting for it. So better yet, just put in motion your rules, your plan of attack for whatever eventuality might come. And then go pick the flowers. Go stare at the sky. Go do yoga. Go swing a baseball bat. You can't fix that uncertain future. You can't make it come to you faster. See, that's the illusion. The great divide between typical investing and trend following. Typical investing is predicated on the notion that your action will give you something that you want at the time you want it. That's all typical investing is. It's absolutely 100% nonsense. People that believe that are masochistic. They apparently love suffering. They love pain. They love to be beaten down. Because if you believe something like that, which is patently false, if you believe that you can control the investment and have it deliver a return to you on the timing you want, and if you allow yourself to believe the talking heads out there, the brokers, the investment professionals, that tell you this can all happen, and you don't bother to look and realize that they don't know, they can't know, and they don't know. Whereas trend following just says, wow, it's a beautiful day out today. Maybe something will happen. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I have thought through the possibilities. I know what can happen. I know my worst case scenario. I've got my stops in. Let's go pick some flowers. Actually, I don't really pick flowers. I don't have any problem with flowers, but I can't tell you the last time I picked flowers. So, frankly, a slight tangent. I have this one trainer in Southern California that I work with. There's actually another one too. There's two of them that are literally transforming me. But one of the things we do is we run along the bay, and then we find this one section of the city where we sprint a block, walk a block, sprint a block, right through whatever it is, downtown, traffic, people, whatever. We probably look like psychopaths. Me and this gal, doing this every Friday in the blazing sun, whatnot. And it's such an interesting feeling. Anyways, continuing, that's quite the tangent where I'm going there with my sprinting through traffic. And there is a trick to it, especially if you go with the one-way roads. You can actually run in traffic with fairly limited risk of being hit by a car, or at least that's my understanding right now. This other post also talks about the tragedy of goals. We set goals, these little dreams of what the future will be like, and focus on them. Every day we work on these goals, take a step closer, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have goals. But you gotta realize that when you get to that point where you have your first $1 million and you're looking at it in your bank account and you're like, I really don't feel any different. I've got $1 million now. I don't feel any different. Why do I have a feeling that feels the same at 100 million and a billion too? Now, of course, if you're still in a place where you're struggling with the bills and struggling with the day-to-day, that's understandable. I can remember packing everything up in my car, a dumpster VW Golf, to go work somewhere in the southern United States, not knowing a soul and just getting in the car and going. So I know what it's like to be like having bills and money issues. But you gotta work your way through that. That's part of the challenge. You have to work your way through that. You do have to have some goals, but you don't want to become overwhelmed by this stuff. And if you are, and we'll say this, and this is my limited Dave Ramsey style advice for this podcast. If you are having some money issues, once again, start with something small. Like, stop buying stuff. Stop buying plastic trinket stuff and setting it all around your house and thinking that you're going to feel better because you've got more plastic trinket stuff in your house that you bought from Target and Walmart. Just stop while you're ahead. So, anyways, I just thought those were two great posts. It's in habits. And I'll leave you, as I'm going to move into this next segment, which is going to be all kind of trading commandments, trend following. I want to leave with this one little quote from Voltaire. We never live. We are always in the expectation of living. I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, but that's the goal, right? It's not the expectation of living. It's the right freaking now. So I have a bunch of commandments that I want to kind of read through. These are trading commandments, a few life commandments that I want to read through and comment on if need be. But I think a lot of these are just those inspirational reminders that you need to hear deep in your gut, deep in your blood. I like blood. I don't know why. Number 1, work on one thing at a time until finished. Don't be nervous. Work calmly, joyously, recklessly on whatever is at hand. Work according to program and not according to mood. Stop at the appointed time. When you can't create, you can work. Cement a little every day rather than add new fertilizers. Keep human. See people. Go places. Drink if you feel like it. You know what? I think I've had like 5 drinks this year. I completely... I'm a guy that grew up in suburban Virginia. So I grew up with plenty of guys and, playing baseball. You drink a lot of beer and all that kind of stuff. I have to tell you, I've completely don't have any desire at all. I'd rather, as I said in this last segment, I'd rather go sprint through the streets of Little Italy in between blocks trying to avoid being hit by a car. That's more fun to me than drinking alcohol right now. Tangent, sorry. Let's see. Forget the books you want to write. Think only of the book you are writing. Write first and always. Painting, music, friends, cinema, all these come afterwards. Meaning, and that's using writing as a word for everything. And there's a great book by Brenda Ueland. I believe it's spelled Ueland. She was, I think it was written in the around 1915, 1925, somewhere in that ballgame. Very strong woman who wrote, and it's funny, I was thinking about women influences and I forgot all about her. That book is just great. The name of the book is called If You Want to Write, and it's a book about writing. However, you read the book, and wherever she uses the word writing, you can insert anything that you're passionate about, and the book entirely works. It's the coolest damn book. And it's all about just spirit and making things happen. Anyways, as I said, though, that most of this segment is going to be about trading principles. So this is a list that someone emailed me today, and it was a whole list of different things. Some Jesse Livermore, some guy named Art Huprick, who I've never heard of, but this got some great points. The first list I want to go through, though, is the 10 most foolish things a trader can do. I don't know if I'm going to read all 10, but here's a couple of them. Try to predict the future movement of a stock and stay in it no matter what. Yep, clearly prediction's ridiculous. Risk your entire account on one trade with no stop loss plan. That should be self-evident. Have a winning trade but no exit strategy to get out. Clearly not good. Trade your opinions and not a quantified method. Clearly bad stuff. Do not bother to do your homework on trading. Just jump in and trade. You're smart. You will figure it out. No, you won't. No, you won't. If you don't have a plan and you just jump in, you're going to lose. Guaranteed. Clearly, some people will hear that and be like, oh, no, I'm really smart. I had a conversation the other night with two guys from Larry Height's office. They happened to be visiting, and we met up in La Jolla, California. And we got to talking, and the one guy was a very bright guy with Larry's firm, PhD, and kind of a fun guy. I wanted to detect some Russian accent there. And anyways, he was talking about conversations that he'll often have with people. And we were talking about how simple trend following is. Simple, literally on paper, it's simple. Perhaps difficult to conceptualize, perhaps difficult to execute. But he was talking about how he'll get people that'll come in the office and they won't have these really crazy detailed statistical conversations. And he'll just be like, no, that's not what we do. It's just this simple. This is what it is. And I think the phrase that came up in our conversation was statistical masturbation, very similar to Ed Secoda's derivation of mental masturbation used as math-turbation. But he said, here's the guy who's a very smart guy, PhD, Columbia. And he said, I'll tell these people when they want to have these detailed discussions about high-level math and all this stuff. He'll say to them, look, I'll leave my PhD at the door if you'll just leave all your stuff at the door. Meaning he's observant enough to know that his PhD, all that experience and education that comes with it, can be left at the door and is not necessary to operate or understand a trend following system. That's why I'm reading some of these baseline little principles today. Think about that. Here's a man, PhD, working with inside a great trend following firm for years, and he knows the PhD is not the key. He knows it. So let me see if there's a couple here, these 10 more foolish things you can do. Let's see. Put on trades you are 100% sure are winners, so you do not even need a stop loss or risk management. Buy more of a trade that you're losing money in and sell your winners quickly to lock in small profits. Just great reminders of stuff you don't want to do. Now, here's this guy, Art Huprich, Market Truisms and Axioms. Commandment number 1, thou shalt not trade against the trend. Self-evident. Sell when you can, not when you have to. I don't know what that. Sell when you can, not when you have to. I don't know about that one. I think when you sell when you have to. You sell when the exits hit. We can't control the market. The very best we can do is try to understand what the stock market is trying to tell us. I don't know about that. Well, yeah, you can't control the stock market, but I don't know if you can understand it. You're not trying to understand it. You're just trying to trade it, trying to make money. Why do you want to understand it? That seems kind of irrelevant. Understanding mass psychology is just as important as understanding fundamentals and economics. Well, it's important to understand mass psychology, but I'm not sure why it's important to understand fundamentals and economics. Not for trading. For trading, don't you need to understand what's the portfolio you're going to trade, when are you going to enter, when are you going to exit, and how much you're going to bet on each trade? What is having a Bernanke level understanding have to do with that? I'm missing the point. Let's see what he says here. Any dead fish can go with the flow, yet it takes a strong fish to swim against the flow. In other words, what seems hard at the time is usually over time right. He's true on that. I mean, it's sticking with the trend following. I use that dice analogy early on, but if you start rolling the dice and you're playing that game, what happens? You get 10 rolls and you lose 10 pennies in a row before you get your first winner. It doesn't feel good, but you got to stick with the plan. You got to understand your expectation, understand the odds, understand the game you're playing. When trading, if a stock doesn't perform as expected within a short time period, either close it out or tighten your stop loss point. Well, that makes sense. Technical analysis is a windsock, not a crystal ball. It is a skill that improves with experience and study. Always be a student. There is always someone smarter than you. Well, conceptually, that's true, but technical analysis should be a science, not an art. And this isn't painting a picture, that's not drawing a doodle. It's scientific. I mentioned in the first segment that I had a seminar class that I did and in San Juan Capistrano last weekend. And I was trying to get a point across. And the guy that I was talking with was very bright, extremely bright, but he was caught up in the parameter value of what we were talking about. Let's say a pyramid increment or whatever. He was caught up in that and he was missing the big picture principle point. The first thing you want to do with trend following is grab the principles. Principles first, then you can come back, reverse engineer, and backfill in the rules. Principles first. Let's get back to Art's market truisms and axioms here. Let's see. When there is smoke, there is fire, or there is never just one cockroach. In other words, bad news is usually not a one-time event. More usually follows. Well, that might be true, but I don't know how you're supposed to build a trading rule around that. So throw that one in the trash heap. I so wish I could put this out there. I showed these guys at this event over the weekend. When I did this event with Ed Sakota and Larry Height a year and a half ago in Chicago, this goofy association would not let us release the video. So we have this fantastic video of Larry and Ed interacting on stage. And so I showed these guys at the seminar, though I showed them some of the video of Ed singing his Whipsaw song. And it's really fun, though, because Ed is singing the song, but in between each verse, he stops and gives a little education. And there's a little sarcastic fun side to Ed. It's really just classic video. But I guess the only way you're going to see it is if you come see me, because these goofy associations, next thing I know, I'll get some kind of cease and desist letter for putting out video that I was actually in. So let's see. Wishful thinking can be detrimental to your financial health. That's kind of like the Zen habit stuff earlier. You can't make the future come to you. Let's see. Your odds of success improve when you buy stocks when the technical pattern confirms the fundamental opinion. I don't know what that means. Hold on. That's completely nonsense. Your odds of success improve when you buy stocks when the technical pattern confirms the fundamental opinion. Your odds of success improve when you're in Tokyo and you're sitting on the toilet and you've got one of those fantastic toilets with that sidearm there and all the gadgets and stuff that blow water shots at you, and there's like a hair dryer on it and a freaking massager. If anyone's been to Tokyo, you know what I'm talking about. Now, that's completely off on a tangent, so excuse me if that sounded rough, but I have to tell you, if you've not been to Tokyo and you've not experienced Japanese toilet technology, and I'm not saying this in a sarcastic way at all, the Japanese, when it comes to toilets, are on top of it, man. Americans are like savages when it comes to toilets. The Japanese, this is like the Mercedes of toilets. This is engineering par excellence. It's like a circus. It's like an amusement ride. Anyways, let me get back into these Jesse Livermore trading lessons, which kind of buttress art. Just basic stuff. Cut your losses quickly. Confirm your judgment before going all in. I don't know what that means. Unless you can make it quantified in terms of price action. You know, your judgment can't just be something that you're sitting there shooting from the hip. That's just not the way it works. Let profits ride until price action dictates otherwise. Absolutely. Quote, it was never my thinking that made me the big money for me. It was always just my sitting. Right? That goes right back to the Zen Habits quote. Have you noticed how Zen Habits, it's like, I think we could go to Zen Habits and remove all of the quote, life living wisdom that he's giving in Zen Habits and insert trend following, kind of like Brenda Yulin's book that I was talking about. If you want to write, you could go to Zen Habits and just replace everything with the word trend following. It probably, the whole website probably works. I have to see, maybe he'll let me do a guest post on trend following one day. I have to meet him. He's an interesting guy. Another Livermore lesson, buy all-time new highs. That's a no-brainer. That's trend following 101. Buy things at highs. Control your emotions. You know, I don't know if it's about controlling your emotions. I think it's about understanding them and not letting them overwhelm you. I think that's really more important. So I just thought these were some great little axioms. A couple different sources there. Of someone sent me an email. Some great axioms and reminders of trading. And if you understand those big picture principles that I just went over, that is trend following. You know, it's funny when I was watching this video with Ed Sakota singing, you know, he would do one verse of the Whipsaw song, which if you've not seen it, go see the Whipsaw song on YouTube. Ed Sakota Whipsaw song, YouTube, over 100,000 views, worth watching. But he would sing a verse about, you know, ride your winners or something. And then he'd stop playing the banjo and look at the audience. Now, this is an audience full of suits, right? A lot of fund managers. I remember I was sitting there and I had never met him before, but I looked back and I realized the guy's name tag said Brian Proctor. He's one of the turtles, and ended up talking to him for a while. So it was an interesting audience. Actually, you know what? The Brian Proctor thing, I got that confused with when the turtle presentation was at this same event like the year before. But it's the same point. It's the same audience. That's why I was remembering. It's generally, look, the Managed Funds Association, when they do these events, it's the same group year after year after year. So if you really want to kind of meet interesting trend following traders, I don't care which year you're at the MFA event in Chicago, it's going to be the same kind of people. But what was great was Ed would play this verse from the, from his song, the Whipsaw song, and he would stop and look at the audience and he'd just be like, you know, that's it, you know, that's all there is. Okay, you with me? That's all there is. There's nothing more. And I remember sitting on stage because while Ed was off stage singing, I was on stage with Larry Height, just looking at the audience. And, you know, a lot of people didn't get it. A lot of people, you just know that you didn't get it because I'm almost positive, I'll go back and listen, but the very first question was some lady that stood up and it was literally like this fundamental analysis CNBC type question. After she had just listened to Ed and Larry talk about trend following for an hour, just listen to Ed sing this song called the Whipsaw song. Every last bit of what happened went right over her head. Did not see, did not understand, completely passed her, no clue. And you know what? She probably had her PhD. She probably worked for a major investment bank. Maybe she read a major hedge fund. Maybe she had millions of dollars in the bank, but she had no freaking clue. As you're trying to understand trend following, be aware of that. There's a lot of Rolexes walking around out there that don't know they're blank from a hole in the ground. Don't ever forget it. Look, as I end up today, I want to go ahead and I'm getting ready for a journey. Okay. I don't know where it is because I'm starting this new book, which is going to be very different for me, a very different type project. I keep telling people it's a cross between the Mitch Albom book, Tuesdays with Morrie, and the movie about being inside John Malkovich's mind. But I'm on this journey. I'm officially on this journey. And I know I've got to head east while I'm on this journey. I've got to cross the Pacific and spend a little more time over in the land of the rising sun. So I'm going to start to figure out what that schedule is going to be. And I'm going to be at a bunch of different locations, a bunch of different countries. And I'm going to want to meet with a lot of people because this is fun. And I know a lot of people, I see that website, I see the podcast traffic. I know people all around the world are listening. It's something like 137 countries. So there's a lot of people listening, but I'm coming, not that anyone's really sitting around caring too much about whether or not I'm coming or not, but I am coming, to coming that way. And, so I'm tentatively thinking about a tour that takes me through, Tokyo, Seoul, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, and maybe ending up in the beaches of Thailand. I'd like to go to Penang too. So that's kind of my little foray that I'm thinking. I've got a good buddy who's from Jakarta. I might try and get in there as well too. So keep that in mind when I start to put this together. I want to figure out different ways that I can collaborate and meet with like-minded folks on that side of the planet. Because I tell you, if I can get anything, give me 1,000 people. I mean, you talk about what makes me excited. Give me 1,000 people that I can stand up in front of. No notes, no teleprompter. Just wind me up. Let me go. Let me start talking about this subject. Everything I've talked about in this podcast. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's get it out there. Let's get some large audiences together. More news to come on that. I've talked a lot today, so let me wind down. Because, oh, by the way, I am only an hour away from 2 hours of yoga. Yes, this is the process. This is the Michael Covel process. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.